The silence in the penthouse was absolute, a vacuum sealed by triple, paned glass that muted the glittering, indifferent city 60 floors below. Alistair Croft stood at the window, a crystal tumbler of 40-year-old Macallan in his hand, its warmth doing nothing to thaw the permanent frost in his chest. On the glass, a faint, ghostly reflection stared back. A man in a tailored Brioni suit, a king in a castle of his own making, utterly and completely alone. It was his 55th birthday. The only acknowledgement was a sterile, automated email from his executive assistant, reminding him of a board meeting the next morning. He took a slow sip, the whiskey tasting of ash and forgotten promises. The Croft Holdings building was a monolith of steel and ambition, a testament to a life built on the ruthless pursuit of success. Alistair had erected it stone by cold stone, after his wife, Eleanor, had passed away a decade ago. Work became his sanctuary, his shield, and eventually, his prison. He had pushed away friends, estranged his sister, and buried his grief under billion-dollar deals and corporate acquisitions. He was the formidable CEO, the titan of industry, a man who commanded fear and respect in equal measure. But tonight, on his birthday, the facade was crumbling. The vast, minimalist apartment felt less like a home, and more like a beautifully appointed tomb. He had almost called his daughter, Claire, who was studying in Paris. But he'd remembered the time difference. The stilted, awkward conversation they'd had at Christmas. And he'd placed the phone back down. The weight of his isolation was a physical pressure, a heavy stone lodged beneath his sternum. Down in the lobby, Marta, the night shift cleaning lady, was fighting her own quiet battle. A single mother who had emigrated from Poland 5 years ago. Her life was a precarious balancing act of double shifts, English language classes, and the fierce, consuming love for her 7-year-old daughter, Lena. With childcare an impossible expense, Marta had no choice but to bring Lena with her on the late shift, a secret she guarded fiercely. She would settle her daughter in a small, disused janitor's closet she'd furnished with a sleeping bag, a battery-powered lamp, and a stack of picture books, her heart clenching with of guilt and necessity every time she locked the door. Tonight was special, however. It was Lena's birthday too. Marta had scraped together enough for a small, store-bought cupcake with pink frosting and a single candle. During her break, she'd smuggled Lena up to the staff break room on the 5th floor, a space always empty after 8 p.m. They'd sung a soft, whispered, "Happy birthday," their voices echoing faintly in the sterile room. Lena's eyes had shone with joy. She'd blown out the candle, and they'd shared the tiny cake, a moment of pure, stolen happiness amidst the struggle. Later, as Marta vacuumed the executive floor, Lena, who had been told to stay absolutely quiet in her little closet, had needed the bathroom. She'd tiptoed out, her small figure a shadow in the cavernous, darkened hallways. On her way back, drawn by the sliver of light beneath a large door, she'd peeked into the corner office. She saw the grandest room she'd ever seen, and in it, a man. He wasn't working. He was just standing at the window, his shoulders slumped in a way that looked so heavy, so sad. He looked, Lena thought, exactly how she felt when she missed her Babsia back home and tried not to cry. Her mama had taught her that on your birthday, you should share your joy. She remembered the leftover half of her cupcake, carefully wrapped in a napkin and tucked into her pocket for later. Without a sound, she padded back to the break room, retrieved her treasure, and returned to the office door. Alistair was pulled from his bleak reverie by a small, almost imperceptible sound. A shuffle. He turned, his CEO mask instinctively slamming into place, ready to chastise an incompetent employee. But it was no employee. Standing just inside his doorway was a little girl with wide, dark eyes and braided hair. She was clutching something in her hands. She looked frightened but resolute, a tiny pioneer in an unknown land. Alistair's sharp reprimand died on his lips. He just stared. The girl took a tentative step forward, then another. She held out her small hands, offering a crumpled napkin. On it sat a slightly squashed half of a pink, frosted cupcake. Her voice, when she spoke, was a soft bell in the overwhelming silence. "I saved you some cake, mister," she said. "It's my birthday, and you look like you needed some too." The words were so simple, so utterly devoid of guile or agenda, that they bypassed all of Alistair's defenses. They went straight through the suit, the title, the wealth and the walls of grief, and touched the raw, lonely man he had been decades ago. A profound shock rolled through him. His eyes, which had been dry for a decade, stung with a sudden, unfamiliar heat. The stone in his chest cracked. For a long moment, Alistair could only look from the proffered cupcake to the proud's earnest face. The CEO, the negotiator, the orator, was rendered utterly speechless. He slowly knelt, bringing himself to her eye level, the expensive wool of his trousers scraping against the floor. "It's your birthday," he finally managed, his voice rough with disuse. Lena nodded, her braids bouncing. "Mum, I'm 7. Mama and me shared a cake. There was a candle and everything." Her eyes darted around the enormous office. "Do you work here all by yourself?" "It's really big." "Yes," Alistair said, the word carrying a weight she couldn't possibly understand. "It is very big. And very quiet." He looked at the cupcake again. "You saved this for me." "You looked sad," she stated simply, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "Mama says birthdays are for sharing. Even if you're sad, cake helps a little." The profound, unvarnished empathy in that statement shattered what was left of his composure. A single tear escaped, tracing a path down his cheek before he could stop it. He saw the child's eyes widen, not in fear, but in concern. "Oh, don't be sad, mister," she whispered, stepping closer. "Here." She pushed the napkin into his hand. Alistair took it, the simple gesture feeling more significant than signing any multi-million-dollar contract. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick. "This is the most kind thing anyone has done for me in a very long time." He looked at her, truly seeing her now, the worn but clean dress, the scuffed shoes. "Where is your mama?" Just then, a panicked whisper echoed from the hallway. "Lena?" Gizi gestured. "Lena?" Marta appeared in the doorway, her face ashen with terror. She saw her daughter standing before the CEO, the man known for his cold, unforgiving demeanor. She saw the half-eaten cupcake in his hand. Her mind raced through every worst-case scenario. She'd fired, arrested, deported. She'd lost everything. "Mr. Croft, I am so sorry!" "Sir," she just wandered off. "I will take her. She will never bother you again, please." Marta rushed forward, grabbing Lena's hand, pulling her back. "Wait." Alistair's voice was not the sharp, commanding bark they expected. It was quiet but firm. He stood up, still holding the cupcake like a sacred relic. "It is your birthday too?" he asked Lena softly, ignoring the trembling mother for a moment. Lena nodded, clinging to her mother's leg. He then turned his gaze to Marta, taking in her cleaning uniform, the fear in her eyes, the fierce, protective way she held her daughter. He saw not an incompetent employee breaking rules, but a mother fighting for her child. He saw a reflection of a different kind of strength, one he had never valued but now recognized as superior to his own. "You brought your daughter to work," he stated, not accusingly, but with a dawning understanding. Marta's shoulders slumped in defeat. "I have no choice, sir. The childcare, it is too much. I am so sorry. I will go now." "No," Alistair said again. He walked behind his desk, and for a heart-stopping moment, Marta was sure he was reaching for the phone to call security. Instead, he picked up the internal phone and dialed. "James," he said to his security chief. "I need you to go to the finest patisserie in the city. Get a birthday cake, the best they have, and bring it to the 5th floor break room, immediately." He paused. "And James, also get a selection of the best toys you can find for a 7-year-old girl." He hung up and looked at the utterly bewildered pair. "A birthday should be celebrated properly," he said, a faint, almost forgotten warmth in his eyes. "And it seems I have 2 birthdays to celebrate tonight." That night, in a small, drab break room, a billionaire, a cleaner, and a little girl shared a chocolate torte adorned with gold leaf. They sang 2 rounds of Happy Birthday. And for the first time in 10 years, Alistair Croft blew out a candle and made a wish. He didn't wish for a new merger or a higher stock price. He wished for this feeling, this connection, this unexpected, unearned grace, to never end. The act of kindness did not end there. The next day, Alistair established an on-site, high-quality daycare center for all employees of Croft Holdings. Marta was promoted to manage it, her compassion and strength making her the perfect candidate. Lena became a frequent, welcome guest in the CEO's office, where she would color on the other side of his desk while he worked. Alistair called his daughter in Paris. The conversation was awkward, but it was a start. He began to rebuild the bridges he had burned, one hesitant apology at a time. He kept the crumpled napkin with a stain of pink frosting pressed inside a glass frame on his desk. It was a daily reminder that the most valuable currency in the world is not wealth or power, but the courage to offer a piece of your cake to a stranger. It was a lesson in humanity, taught by the smallest and wisest of teachers, a reminder that even in the darkest isolation, a single act of compassion can turn on a light that illuminates an entire life. The little girl hadn't just given him cake, she had given him back his heart, and in doing so, had shown him that the truest success is measured not in what we acquire, but in what we give away. Moral of the story: the smallest act of kindness, offered without expectation, can bridge the deepest divides of wealth and loneliness, reminding us that our shared humanity is the most precious gift we can ever give or receive.